Shalom and welcome back. We discussed last time our responsibility as parents to balance the love we give the children and the demands we make of the children. Our responsibility to guide the children. Our responsibility to give them self-confidence so that they could stand up to life's demands so that they can grow. And we discussed that this trio, the self-confidence, the love, and even the criticism, the three work hand in hand. Ask yourself, what is the picture that most represents love? I think most people will agree the picture that most represents love is a mother holding a baby. When a mother holds a baby, she doesn't have demands of the baby. She just wants to give the baby. She's giving him nourishment. She's giving him love. Love in Hebrew is the word ahava. And some suggest that the word ahava stems from the root hav, to give. So when we speak about love, we have to know our responsibility as parents is to give. And here we will divide our discussion into two realms. Number one, we'll begin with a story. There was a girl who came to her friend for the birthday party and brought him a lefty mitt. You probably know this girl. This is the girl in the cartoon Peanuts. And she shows up, Lucy shows up with a lefty mitt. And the boy looks at her and says, "But I'm a righty, why'd you bring me a lefty mitt?" And she says, "Yeah, but I'm a lefty. And this way when my birthday comes around, you could bring me the mitt." Now, the idea behind the cartoon is very important. We tend to give what we think we would like to receive. And sometimes as parents, we make that mistake as well. Sometimes parents work with the motto, I want my children to have what I never had. And so they spoil the children. They buy them things that the children really shouldn't have. Ask yourself, are you giving the child what he needs? Just as chinuch is chanuch la'na'ar al pi darko, that our chinuch has to be focused on the child's path, so too the love we give has to be focused on the child's needs. What does a child need? A child needs to hear that he is loved. He needs to feel that he is loved. That means when we come home or when the child comes home, we tell him, "I missed you. It's good to see you." A simple line like that. We call home during the day. Sometimes parents can't be home. A father can't be home when a child comes home from school. But it's important that he calls, that he shows an interest. He asks him how his test was, how his day was. I recommend parents have a set schedule in their minds where every Shabbos they speak to each child about who their friends are. Who do they sit next to in class? Who do they play with? What games do they enjoy? We as parents should know this, and sometimes we don't. Parents sometimes think they can compensate with gifts. Gifts are important, but they don't make up for real love. A child needs real love. He needs to feel loved. And that is the basis for his self-confidence later. Love involves touch as well. A child needs to be kissed. A child needs to be hugged. I met a parent once who told me, "I don't feel natural hugging or kissing my kids." I felt bad for that parent, but you know what? That's no excuse. We have a responsibility. The child needs it. And again, we're not giving him that lefty mitt like Lucy. We're giving him what he needs. Our responsibility as parents is to give him the love he needs to receive. There's another mistake that it even pains me to discuss because of how deep this mistake affects children. Parents will sometimes tell a child, "I want you to succeed on the test. Succeed so Abba will love you." What a terrible line. Succeed so Abba will love you. And if I don't succeed? Our responsibility is to give unconditional love. That has to be a given in his life. You know what happens when a parent makes that mistake? The child hears. He hears that the parent really said, "If you don't succeed on that test, I won't love you." And you know what he intrinsically wants to do? He wants to fail. He wants to prove to himself, they will love me even though I didn't succeed. And so it's really counterproductive, but it's also unfair. How could we put a child in such a position? The child has to prove that he's worthy of the love? No. He's worthy of the love because he's our child, and he has to feel that way. We will give him that sense of self-worth. At least we should. We give him that sense of self-worth by loving him unconditionally. Now that doesn't mean we don't make demands. Obviously, we're not going to let him go beating up his siblings. We're not going to let him go ruining the neighbor's cars or ruining the yard. We have to give him limitations. We have to give him guidance. But we also have to give him unconditional love. And the two are complementary. The two don't conflict. I don't have to tell a child, I love you, and you won't do that. Oh, sometimes you could say that. But the truth is, he has to understand from everything I do, from the way the house is run, I do love him. I should take every opportunity I can to demonstrate that. I demonstrate that by giving him time, by giving him affection, by showing him warmth. And also, when I show him I have expectations of him, I'm not contradicting the love, quite the contrary. I'm showing him I believe in him. I met a young man, 20 years old. He had to go on a business trip, and he came to me with a dread. At first I thought he was joking. He came to me and said, how am I going to go on this business trip? It's a 10-day long business trip. And in 10 days, I'm going to have to cut my nails. So I looked at him and I thought he was joking. I said, what's the problem with cutting your nails? He said to me, my mother cuts my nails. 20 years old, and his mother is still cutting his nails. I felt very bad for him. If I love him, then part of what I'm going to show him is I have confidence in him. And he is going to deal even with little things like cutting his own nails or cleaning up after himself. Taking out the garbage. There's nothing wrong with a child taking out the garbage. There's everything right with a child taking out the garbage. I'm not saying they're going to love it. They might complain about it. The fact that I have faith in a child and I give him tasks that I expect him to do, well, that's a positive thing. It doesn't contradict love. The demands I make of a child, if they're legitimate, well, they're supplementary, they're complementary to the love I give them. We have a fantastic story in the Torah. Avraham Avinu, Abraham our patriarch, got a commandment to circumcise. So he's an old man, he's 99 years old. And his son Yishmael was 13 years old. So Avraham is circumcising himself at 99, and Yishmael is 13. It was painful. He could barely move afterwards. It was painful for him. It was painful for Yishmael. And then the Torah tells us that Avraham was sitting at the entrance to his tent looking for guests. So, okay, we know Avraham is very into having guests. But what happens when he sees 3 strangers, 3 people who he thinks are pagans? He thinks they're some kinds of Arabs who are pagans. And he runs out to greet them and invite them to his home. So we see Avraham's greatness. But what happens next is really eye-opening. Avraham turns to his son Yishmael and says, help me out, please get some meat for the guests. And get some meat meant go get the cattle, slaughter the cattle, skin the cattle, slice up the meat so we can prepare the roast for the guests. Now imagine Yishmael. He grew up in a house with servants. He knows there are over 100 servants that can be asked to do the task he is being asked to do. His father Avraham is turning to him. He's in pain. He is also 3 days after circumcision. So Rabbi Reuven Feinstein pointed out that in so doing, when Avraham turns to Yishmael and asks him, please, go get the meat, Avraham is teaching Yishmael that we have to work hard in life. Things don't always go easy. But when Yishmael sees that this isn't a cop-out, Avraham himself, his own father, is working hard to feed the guests. So then Yishmael not only goes, but it becomes a part of Yishmael and his descendants' heritage that they take in guests. Rabbi Feinstein pointed out that Yishmael did it, and it became a part of their culture. So Avraham is demanding of Yishmael. And he's demanding when it's not easy. But you know what? Yishmael gets the message. It becomes a part of who he is. We want to give our children true self-confidence, true self-worth. That's not going to come from lip service. That's going to come from true appreciation of who they are, showing them we have confidence in them. And that means sometimes they're going to make mistakes. And the question is, how are we going to react when they make mistakes? Sometimes a parent asks a child, could you prepare lunches for everyone? And the child responds positively. They're very happy. They go and make lunches. And you come to this kitchen and you see that the peanut butter is spread not only on the bread, it's spread on the table as well. The jelly, well, it has smacks of peanut butter in it. And the child, to boot, has smeared peanut butter and jelly on their clothing and on their hair. What's the natural reaction? I can't believe you did that. I thought you were old enough to make sandwiches for everyone. What's the correct reaction? We know the correct reaction. The correct reaction is sitting with the child, looking at how they do it, and guiding them. And sometimes they'll get it, and sometimes they won't. Sometimes they're ready for that responsibility, and sometimes they aren't. And sometimes they're ready for the responsibility, but their execution is not going to be up to par with what we want. But they're still ready for the responsibility. And maybe part of our role as parents is to bite the bullet. I know a parent who walks out of the room when they give the child the responsibility to make sandwiches. Because they know that if they'll be in the room, well, they're going to have a hard time swallowing, watching the child smear peanut butter on the bread and then get it on the table, wipe off their hands on their dress. So they walk out of the room because they know what's right for the child is to have that responsibility and succeed at it. So when we speak about giving the child self-confidence, we're talking about real self-confidence. Real self-confidence comes from real trust, from real love. And that means that we as parents will sometimes have to bite the bullet. Sometimes we'll have to smile and turn a blind eye. And that's a whole topic in its own right, our responsibility as parents to sometimes turn a blind eye. Be'ezrat Hashem, at a later date we'll discuss it. So let's review. What did we discuss today? We discussed the importance of a child's confidence in the relationship itself. We discussed that the love has to be unconditional. Just as a mother holding the baby knows it doesn't have to produce, it's loved as is. So too every child needs that love that's unconditional. We discussed the tremendous mistake a parent makes if they make their love conditional. We discussed that it even backfires. The child will try to prove to himself and to you that you love him unconditionally. We discussed the story of Avraham and Yishmael and Avraham's insistence, Avraham's request of Yishmael to produce, even though it's hard for him. And we discussed that this is what ingrained in Yishmael the values of Avraham, or at least that value of Avraham. We discussed that we want real self-confidence. And in order to attain real self-confidence, the child needs real love and real demands. Next time, we'll discuss stories, the great educational tool of telling stories to children. We will explore the do's and don'ts of telling a good story, the great tool, the capacity to help a child contend with fears through a story, helping a child change through a story, telling a funny story, telling a story that's invigorating. We'll discuss the different skills that we can apply, the props that we could use, the setting that will be most conducive, and how to make a child enjoy a story. What's a good ending to a story? I look forward to seeing you next time. Thank you very much.